Little boy whispered, "They took my sister." The bikers didn't wait a second. The wind howled across the empty highway as the sound of roaring engines shattered the silence. A group of bikers, clad in leather and dust, pulled up outside a rundown gas station on the edge of nowhere. The sun was sinking, painting the sky in hues of fire and sorrow. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man with scars across his knuckles, stepped off his bike, thinking it was just another pit stop before dark. But then, from the shadows near the gas pumps, came a trembling whisper that would change everything. A little boy, no older than 8, his clothes torn and dusty, lifted his tear-streaked face and whispered, "They took my sister." Before we dive deeper into this story of courage, loyalty, and redemption, if you believe that kindness and second chances can still change the world, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Royal Stories for more powerful, true-to-heart tales like this one. The bikers looked at the boy in stunned silence. His words hit like a bullet. The leader, known among his brothers as Cole, crouched down slowly, noticing the boy's trembling hands and the bruises along his small arms. The boy's eyes were wide, glassy with fear, yet beneath them burned something deeper, desperation. Cole had seen that look before, long ago, in his own reflection as a child left behind by a world that didn't care. "Who took her?" he asked softly, but the boy only pointed toward the far-off hills, where the sun had disappeared. It didn't matter who they were, traffickers, criminals, or worse, the bikers didn't wait for details. They had once been outlaws themselves, men with broken pasts, scars that didn't heal, and hearts they thought were too cold to care anymore. But something about that child's voice cracked through the walls they'd built over years of rage and regret. Cole signaled his men, and in a moment, engines roared back to life. Dust rose into the crimson sky as the gang of 6 thundered down the dirt road, following the faint trail of tire marks and footprints leading toward the woods. As they rode, the boy's words echoed in Cole's mind. He could almost hear the trembling fear beneath them. He had once had a little sister too, years ago, taken by the streets while he was locked away in a youth cell. He had promised himself he'd never care again, never feel that helplessness, but now, every beat of his heart screamed with purpose. They would find her. The road grew rough, the trees closing in like dark sentinels. They reached an abandoned farmhouse where faint light flickered through a cracked window. Cole motioned for silence. They parked their bikes, the night swallowing their footsteps as they crept closer. Through the grimy glass, they saw 3 men inside, hard-faced, dirty, their laughter echoing cruelly. And in the corner, tied to a chair, was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 10. Her face was pale, eyes red from crying. Cole felt his blood turn to fire. The bikers didn't wait for a plan. They moved with silent fury. The first door shattered under Cole's boot, and chaos exploded in that room. Fists met flesh, glass shattered, and shouts filled the air. One of the men reached for a weapon, but before he could raise it, one of the bikers, Tank, had already tackled him to the ground. Years of buried anger came pouring out of them as they fought, not for vengeance, but for something purer. For justice, for the innocence that men like them had once lost. When it was over, the silence felt heavier than the fight itself. Cole knelt beside the girl, gently untying her ropes. She flinched at first, but then, when she saw the concern in his eyes, she whispered, "Eli, where's my brother?" Cole smiled faintly. "He's safe," he said, though his voice cracked on the word. He carried her out into the cool night air, where the boy, Eli, came running from the gas station with another biker who had stayed behind. When he saw his sister, he fell to his knees and wrapped his small arms around her, sobbing into her shoulder. For a moment, everything stilled. The bikers stood in the moonlight, their leather vests catching the pale glow, their faces streaked with sweat and dust. None of them spoke, but the silence carried more emotion than words ever could. Cole turned away, blinking back the tears that had no place in a man like him. He thought he'd buried his humanity long ago, but tonight, that little boy had dug it back up. They drove the children back to the small town where the sheriff and paramedics took over. The girl was safe, the men who had taken her were in handcuffs, and the bikers stood by watching as the flashing red and blue lights painted their faces in redemption. When the sheriff asked who they were, Cole simply said, "Just people trying to do what's right." Then he turned to Eli, handed him his leather bracelet, the one he'd worn since his first ride, and said, "Keep this. It'll remind you that there are still good men in this world." Days later, a news story spread online about the Guardian bikers, who saved 2 kidnapped children. The gang didn't care for fame. They didn't even stick around to see the headlines. They just rode on, their engines howling against the setting sun, carrying with them a little more hope than they'd had before. For Cole, it wasn't just about saving a girl, it was about saving himself, piece by piece, in every act of kindness he thought he was too far gone to offer. Life went on, but sometimes, at quiet truck stops or lonely highways, the group would find small notes left for them, written in a child's handwriting, saying things like, "Thank you, bikers," or, "You're our heroes." And every time Cole saw one, he'd fold it carefully, keep it in his pocket, and whisper, "Maybe there's still time for us to be better." If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the roughest souls can carry light, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your support helps us keep spreading tales that heal, inspire, and remind us that goodness still exists in the darkest corners of this world.